What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Bronx Pinstripe Show. This episode is your guide to the 2023 MLB trade deadline. We're going to be going through all the buyers, the sellers, and the tweeners. Scott, good morning. A home run derby was last night. Vlad joined his papa as a father-son duo to win. And J-Rod hit 1 billion home runs. And my money is on him being injured in the second half, because anytime you go crazy in the home run derby, starting with Bobby Abreu when he shocked the world, hitting like 30 home runs 15 years ago and then got hurt. Aaron Judge hurt. J-Rod hurt. Mark my words.
So he's young and spry, man. There's no way that kid's a beast. But the post game interview or the derby interview with Vlad, he's like, I can't walk. I'm so tired, I can't walk. So clearly Vlad was struggling with the fatigue and the fitness of the derby, but he got enough. You know, he bellied it up and won it. I was impressed with the Adley Rutschman, and I was disappointed that he got bounced as fast as he did, because he got bounced really quick when who was it on the White Sox, center fielder Robert. He got bounced quickly. But it was impressive because he went from the left side and then flipped over to the right side. And I guess he missed two, but I didn't even see those two. It looked like he hit every single one of them, and his dad was throwing to him. So little Robbie Cano throwback there. Thought he was a dark horse to win the thing. But yeah, he got annihilated pretty quickly because everybody else was putting up numbers too.
The J-Rod thing was impressive though, because the guy throwing to him was just it was so rapid fire. It was almost like a cheat code. Like they figured out how to maximize every single second of the round to hit the most home runs possible. It was like, I was like, how is he hitting? He would hit like 4 home runs a minute. It was insane.
Yeah. No, the bat speed is crazy. The fact that they can load and get ready again. It's, these guys have definitely gotten a more strategy as the years have gone on with the way that this thing is now. That there's a timer and all these, but they're just, the bat head's just throwing the bat head at the ball and figured out the mechanics of it so that they don't get as tired, I guess. But yeah, it's pretty impressive.
All right.
Are you still liking the format, by the way? Because I know it's been a while since we've had a similar format now.
I'm not going to lie to you and say I sat down and watched the whole thing. It was on in my house throughout the evening, and I was checking in. I had
a worse situation, actually.
Well, you can tell me about that in a second, but I used to, back in the day, 90s especially, with when McGuire and Griffey Jr. and Sosa were in the home run derbies.
Well, yeah, steroids in a home run derby.
No, but
is a good thing.
As a 12-year-old watching the home run derby, and I still remember watching Tino Martinez win the home run derby in 1997 during the day. That was when they still did it during the day in 1997. I think the next year they moved it to prime time. But that used to be appointment television for me. I would have friends over, we would watch the home run derby even more so than the All-Star game. And it's the home run derby, they weren't even doing all these different things to make it special. You're right. It was just literally these roided out freaks hitting 580-foot home runs one after the other. You're like, holy crap, this is awesome.
They were showing some of the throwbacks to Sosa hitting some of those home runs in the upper deck. I mean, my God, was he hitting the living piss out of the ball? Almost 600 feet.
I don't remember what home run derby this was, but he hit 5 home runs 500 feet in a row, and then he swung and missed. It was just the dichotomy between those two things is why Sammy Sosa was the freaking best.
Yeah. No, still I think to date, my fondest memory of home run derbies was Josh Hamilton at Yankee Stadium.
We were a little bit older then. That was 08.
Yeah, but it was awesome. But the fact that it was at Yankee Stadium too was really cool. And I think he hit the longest home run in Yankee Stadium. I mean, granted, it's an exhibition derby since Mantle, but he was hitting moonshots. That guy was a freak, man. It's unfortunate that he had so many demons off the field, because he was a freak of nature on the field.
He had a nice little run though. He had
a good run, but it could have been a lot longer. But yeah, he had to overcome a bunch of shit just personally, I think, to even get to that point.
All right. So what happened in your house last night?
It was Bevan's birthday. So did not. Yeah. I mean, what am I going to do? Put it on? Yeah. No, she had this.
What did you watch the Bachelor? Did you watch the Bachelor Monday
night? Yeah, it was on. It was on.
Yeah, the Bachelor was on the TV. I had the iPad going with the.
Yeah, my laptop was open, and we were doing baseball things. But yeah. So.
The other thing we want to mention is Sean Casey officially hired as Yankees hitting coach. Boone's buddy from his
Boone's
Cincinnati
good buddy.
days.
Yeah, good buddy on the team. Interesting. This is interesting. This throws a wrench into conversations here.
Because last episode we talked about how does Boone have any say in this? Is this just Cashman coming over the top? And the fact that Sean Casey and Aaron Boone are such close friends from their days with the Reds, and there was that clip that you posted. It was on Reddit, I guess. Does Sean Casey have like a YouTube podcast or something?
Yeah, he's got a podcast.
Where I wonder if that's going to keep happening. Where he was talking about how Aaron Boone called him and he cried when Aaron Boone got traded. It's like these guys are boys. But the other thing I noticed from that clip of Sean Casey is I already know he's full of shit. And the reason he's full of shit is because when he was complimenting everyone, he included Randy Levine. And I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There is not one person on the face of this earth that thinks Randy Levine is a good guy. Randy Levine's closest friends and family don't even like Randy Levine. You have those friends, Scott. Everyone has those friends in their life that, yeah, they're your friend for one reason or the other. Maybe you grew up with them, went to high school, they were your college buddy, whatever. They're in your friend group. They're never leaving your friend group, but you don't like them. You'd never recommend them as a person to anybody. That is Randy Levine.
So the whole thing was interesting, and the fact that this is Boone's guy does throw a wrinkle into what the hell is happening behind the scenes with management and the brass. Here's a conspiracy theory to stay on the path of the fact that Aaron Boone is in a weird place. Maybe this is a last ditch resort. Okay, Aaron, you want to stay? Get your guy. You want your guy? This is it. It doesn't work. It's you.
Yeah, this is the last.
Because if you pick someone, you know how that works. If you pick someone and that person doesn't work, and you stand on the table for them and bang the drum, if it doesn't work, this is everything you needed. You said this is what you wanted. This is what you needed to get this thing around, and now you have it. So, maybe that.
Because I mean, Sean Casey.
That would be too convenient for everybody, but maybe that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Sean Casey is right out of the Boone hiring book. He's been a TV personality. He's a former player in the 90s and early 2000s, and he's a TV personality. He has no hitting coach experience.
I don't even know what that means. What the hell does hitting coach experience mean, though, at the same time? Like, does he work with amateur athletes? I'm sure he does. I'm sure he works with amateur guys. He's a hitting savant. Like, the guy studies the game of hitting. I don't think you need
Sean Casey's a hitting savant?
Yeah. You don't need hitting coach experience.
News to me.
Look at Blake. I mean, Blake came from the depths of JV college in Rhode Island or wherever the fuck to come and be on the Yankees because he knew the analytics piece of it.
Blake's an analytics nerd. He's
good
all
at
about maximizing. Yeah.
Right. And Casey, I believe, is that kind of guy for hitting mechanics. And that it's something that he was always talking about it on MLB Network. Like that's what
that qualifies you. That qualifies you.
I mean, as a hitting coach, yeah.
For Brian Cashman, clearly for Brian Cashman, that's all you need to do. You just need to be able to talk on TV because that's how Aaron Boone got hired.
There's no in-game stuff. There's no strategy going. You just need to make sure that people are hitting well.
Of course, the hitting coach doesn't have to have strategy.
Right.
I'm not suggesting he has to have strategy.
You just have to know how to coach someone how to hit. And you can do that on any level. So I don't really, I could care less about his experience level as a hitting coach because what does that even mean? It means nothing. And the other thing is there's two other guys that are on the staff as hitting coaches that he is now going to be coming over. Why not? Why are they still here? Wait, do they not talk?
I don't think they exist.
Lawson manages them. It's just a weird thing.
Their names.
Fat Boy?
They're just names there. Fat Boy Wilkerson. Well, Hank Steinbrenner is going to be real angry with Sean Casey if he doesn't do a good job.
Rolling over.
Okay. Let's get into the trade deadline preview. But before we do that, I want to tell you guys about a new sponsor on our podcast, Factor. As you know, I am now a father of two, which means I have negative 1,000 minutes per week to cook dinner for Harrison, Leanne, and I. That's where Factor comes in and helps. Factor is America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit. They offer delicious, flavor-packed options that meet many dietary needs. If you're calorie-conscious, keto-friendly, you want veggie or vegan meals, there is something for everybody. The process is also super easy. You go online, You pick your meals from a weekly selection of over 30 options. Factor prepares and cooks those meals to perfection with their gourmet chefs, and then the food is delivered to you, and all you have to do is heat it up. Even you and I, Scott.
We can do that.
We can do that. I can
Yeah.
pop something in the microwave and press the 2-minute button. And especially if you don't have a lot of time, it is very, very convenient. There's also a ton of snack options and add-ons, including apple cinnamon pancakes, bacon and cheddar egg bites, and cold pressed juices and shakes if you're on a summer beach diet. This is seriously super easy and the best option for food if you're struggling to eat good and healthy meals. Sometimes it's easy to fall into bad routines, especially like if you've just had a baby or have no time, too busy with work, or if you're just like a 22-year-old and you're like, just order out every night. It's like, yeah, give this a shot instead. With Factor, you're also making a sustainable choice because they offset 100% of their delivery emissions and source 100% renewable electricity for production. Head to factormeals.com/Bronx50 and use code Bronx50 to get 50% off your order. That's 50%. That's half off. That's an amazing deal. That is factormeals.com/Bronx50. Factormeals.com/Bronx50. Thank you very much, Factor. All right, let's go through the buyers. We've organized this into buyers, the in-betweeners, and the sellers. So the buyers, I think, this is an interesting trade deadline because there's not a lot of clear sellers right now. That could change in the next couple weeks as we lead up to the deadline at the end of the month. But as we stand here on July 11th, not a whole lot of buyers. But not a whole lot of sellers. But the buyers, the Rays, they're in first place. They could use some pitching help, starting rotation depth, and some bullpen help. The Rays are always one of those teams, though, that they're never going to make like a huge splash move. But the guy that they trade for, you're like, well, that guy's going to turn into a stud.
Yeah, they've also been, they've tried to add some bigger pieces via like veteran guys too. They've made those moves in the past. So I wouldn't be surprised. They've changed a little bit in the way that they're approaching stuff because they're so young and have so much controlled talent on their team right now. I wouldn't be surprised if they, this is probably the year that they would need to go for it, or
especially because you can tell they're kind of not fizzling out, but they've hit a little bit of a rough patch.
They've just hit their patch.
Week or two.
That's what it is. They've hit their patch. So yeah, there's some interesting things here for them, and there's some interesting guys. So we're talking about, we're doing our GM plans. We're going to record it tomorrow. So we're not going to go into like our personal opinions on what is happening here, but individual people that are available. There's definitely a frontline, quote unquote, frontline pitcher that's available, that could be available. That has a track record with Tampa that could be really interesting.
There's a lot of pitching available at this deadline.
Yeah, and whether I don't think it's top line. I don't think it's as it was in the past couple of years where you can go out and get a bigger like really impact starter, but
like Castillo's not available, right?
Castillo's not available.
Like last year's deadline, like he was the clear-cut number one guy. But and after Castillo last year, as we know, Frankie Montas was the second best pitcher available. We all know how that turned out. I think this year you could make an argument there's 5 to 7 pitchers that are all in the same sort of quality category.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I'm alluding to Snell. Snell's the guy.
I know, but we can talk about some of these guys. Like you're going to have probably from the Cardinals, Flaherty and Montgomery available. You're going to have potentially Eduardo Rodriguez from the Tigers available. You mentioned Snell. Like you're right. They're not the number one pitchers available, but they're quality rotation arms.
They're quality rotation arms. And Snell, the fact that he has a track record there, if he becomes available, that Tampa likes their good fits. It would not surprise me if that were a move that
did that end badly when he got traded. Was that for Ilya's shaking his head. Yes. So that did end badly.
Was it on bad terms though? I mean, I know they did trade him, but I don't remember like a lot of like talking back and forth.
You guys don't remember they pulled him in the World Series?
The World Series.
I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that why? I mean, is that why he got traded?
I don't think it's why he got traded, but he was very publicly upset And
Yeah, which I
you know,
think
he
is fine.
talked
I don't
about,
think that's
like,
irreparable. You know, you can't come back from that.
I mean, you kind of want your pitcher to be upset in that situation.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
he was
Yeah.
dealing in the World Series.
Well, and I also think that it was an opportunity for them to get younger when they realized that they had pitching depth behind him. Like they did.
And didn't they kind of make the right call on
Yes,
Snell?
they did, because he's been terrible for the past 2 years. So he's kind of, you know, I don't know if this is a health thing and they knew something and they just weren't really, you know, expecting him to have the good year, and they were right. They were absolutely right. So they've been elite talent evaluators over the past, you know, decade. Who's to say that they didn't see that now? But if he's healthy and throwing well, like he's clearly, you know, one of the guys that has a ton of talent.
Next team on the list is Baltimore. They're 2 games back of Tampa, and they're in the first wild card spot. They need starting pitching. It's interesting, when I talked to Eric RDT in our Baltimore preview this year, he was extremely disappointed the team did not add starting pitching over the winter. And as you see here, Baltimore is a legit team. So they definitely need to go out and make a trade for one of these starters, maybe even 2 of these starters. They have the farm system to do it. They're in a position now. It's not like last year where you're like, oh, this is kind of a nice story. Like they're playing out. Like, no, they have a legitimate chance to make a run this year. They need to add starting pitching.
Yeah, they do, and they've clearly added. They have position players in the minor leagues that they've already brought up, which gives them even more depth on the major league roster, because they have that. They have players that can fill in, but they've gotten that spark. I think if they are to add on the pitching side, they're a very dangerous team, and they're, you know, obviously young and hungry. So I agree. It's just there's a track record of them not spending as well. So it's a matter of like who they're going after, where they can find.
There's so many expiring free agent contracts, for especially on the pitching side, that you like all those guys I mentioned are free agents or have opt-outs at the end of this year and that are just looking to get. So Baltimore can make a trade for somebody and not even think about signing them next year. This is just a run for this year. We still got a system in place that we're going for the future.
And they have so many young players that are major league level, you know, currently or you know, approaching that level, so that they do have the currency in prospects to go out and get, you know, pretty much anybody to make a move if they can bolster a deal up.
The Blue Jays are 7 games back of the division, and they're currently just up on the Yankees for the 3rd wild card spot. They do need to do a lot if they want to seriously make a run this season. Starting pitching, relief pitching, and also bat first, outfield DH type. As you remember, their offseason was interesting. We kind of praised it. I thought it was good moves. They went defense first in the outfield to sort of shore up some of their deficiencies, but their offense has not been as potent this year. So they do need to add, I think, a decent amount at the deadline. But they are ahead of the Yankees right now.
They are ahead of the Yankees. It's a matter of if they think that they're, you know, I think first thing I look at is their pitching. Do they have enough? Can they even go out and get enough to make a, you know, a significant leap on the pitching side? But yeah, I mean, I would even put them as an in-betweener, as buyers or sellers. Like, yes, they have to be buyers to stay relevant in the AL East.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
But I don't know how much they can add to actually make that team that much better. I think it's one of those situations where, and you know, I don't think the Yankees are that far off from a situation like this where you have the talent and they just need to play better. That's one of those. It's a huge piece of this. You know, I put the Cardinals in the same bucket.
It's a dangerous.
I know it is.
That's a dangerous plan at the deadline. Is let's just all play better, because
it's not that you don't add. It's another. It's just a consideration. It's one of those things you have to consider, especially if you believed in your plan. You have to look at yourself in the mirror as a GM too, and be like, okay, I went into the season with this plan. These guys are not doing the thing that they were supposed to do. Do I believe still that they are going to do that, or do I need to pivot from that? Because the roster becomes very difficult to manage at that point, because you do have these guys cemented in positions that you believe in.
Yeah, no, I think it's but with just like not staying pat entirely, because you can make small additions, but at a certain point, like if we just use this for the Yankees, it's like, well, Josh Donaldson isn't magically going to turn into the player that Brian Cashman believed he could.
That's a different type. That's a 37-year-old man, you know, clinging to life by basically playing home run derby with fastballs when he can.
Yeah.
That's what's happening.
All right, next on the
He
list.
should have entered the home run derby. He might have done well.
Yeah, it's all he does is hit home runs. The Twins are half a game back of Cleveland in the division in the Central, and they're 5 games back of the wild card. This is an interesting one because all of the Central teams, it's like they're only really going for the division and not the wild card. So the Twins, the Guardians. I almost said the other thing.
Yep, I could tell. I was trying to save you.
The Twins and the Guardians. We could talk about them collectively because we put the Guardians in the in-between purely because they seem to never acquire at the deadline.
Right.
But they're also always still relevant because the Guardians need a power bat. And they have guys that have been rumored on the trade block, Bieber, Savali, and they've never been shy about trading their pitching early rather than late. And they just seem to never do what you think they should do at the deadline. Whereas the Twins, are they a good enough team to where if they add, they can really seriously be a contender? I don't know.
Well, it's hard for us to talk about that. It's hard for us to talk about the Twins in a way that's
Sure.
that's serious. But at the same time, if you look at their frontline starting pitching, they have 3 guys that can come in, walk into a series, and shut you down with the way that they're pitching this year. They have the ability to go into a postseason series and pitch well. So if they can bolster the offense a bit and add to that offense, and they deal with injuries, as much as anyone. Byron Buxton is a guy that has been probably one of the more frustrating players for a fan base because he's all world talent, and when he plays, he's great, but when he doesn't play, it's frequent. So it's a matter of adding, I think, more consistency in that lineup. But they do have the pitching. I think they do have the pitching, at least in the rotation, to make a move. So I do think that they're an interesting team. When you look at Cleveland, you're right. I don't know what the hell they're doing. They're always selling. They're always trying to get younger. Do we know if it does? And this is, again, me going back to my guy because I'm praying at some point. But does Jose Ramirez have a no trade clause in his deal? Because it's a pretty manageable deal. We were looking at Brian at Reynolds in Pittsburgh as a manageable deal. When you look at Jose Ramirez, we were all kind of surprised with the deal that he had
full
signed.
no trade clause.
It's a full no trade clause. Okay. Well, that changes that.
And like he stayed in Cleveland because he
wanted to. I understand that. But when you look at a guy, if that were to be a negotiating point, he's with that contract, I think he becomes even more attractive for teams across the league. And you could get an absolute haul. It depends what Cleveland thinks they're in
first place. Cleveland's in first place. They're not.
I understand they're in first place in a really shitty division. Really shitty division.
Still
Yankees
first place. That's still saying to your fan base, if you were to trade, I don't think trading Ramirez is a realistic thing. But if you're to trade, say, Bieber or Savali or someone out of that rotation or something, you're basically saying, yeah, we're in first place, but like we don't think we're going to actually do anything this year.
So at that point, to me, that they're buying then, if that's the case, because if they're
going to do nothing like they do every year. But yeah, they're 500 right now, but weren't they around 500 at this point last year? And they played really well in the second half to win that division pretty handedly. So that's probably what they're going to bank on again happening this year. And are they going to do it again? Probably, because it seems to happen year after year with the Guardians. Is they're pretty mediocre for most of the year, and then August and September rolls around and they play 650 ball down the stretch and they win the division by 5 games.
They did that because of pitching. They didn't score a lot of runs last year. Even in the
year
playoffs,
they do that because of pitching.
Together a few runs to squeak out games, but it's all about pitching. So if you believe that, then they're not going out there and trading Bieber or Savali, and they're going to lean on that pitching to get them to where they think they can go with the offensive team. And maybe they add a piece. They did that. They added the Franimal last year, right? Or was that the year before that? Where at the deadline where they added a power bat. Like they've done little things like that to try to bolster a little bit of offense. So I wouldn't be surprised if they try to do something similar to that, where
if they buy
big marquee move.
If they make a deal to buy at the deadline, it's going to be some middle of the road bat that they're hoping can have a nice second half for them.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to Texas, who's in first place in the AL West. They already made a deal for Aroldis Chapman from the Royals. They've been checking into Pittsburgh about McCutchen. They're seriously active, as we know. They had a great first half, even though DeGrom went down. They would be an interesting team if Scherzer is actually moved off of the Mets, but they could use basically a lot of things, even though they're in first place, relief pitcher, starting pitcher, maybe another bat. I expect them to be very active at the deadline.
Yeah, I would say on the pitching front for sure. I think they're gonna load up on pitching. I think the offense is good enough to win. At any point, regular season, postseason, they have good hitters. They have a lineup that can mash, but also can get on base. So I wouldn't be surprised. I think a guy like McCutchen, you get Andrew McCutchen in that team to add that veteran presence, add like stability. He's having a really good year too.
Yeah.
On base percentage is super high. So he's a guy that's interesting for that team specifically. And then I agree. Like if Scherzer's moved, they're going to spend. The Texas has no problem going out there and spending or picking up half of a contract, even if it's expiring. I think they have to go for it. And the fact that they had injuries that really broke them on the pitching side with DeGrom. I think them going after a as close to a frontline starting pitcher as you can makes a ton of sense.
The Astros are 2 games back of the division, and they're currently in the second wild card. They definitely need starting pitching with McCullers and Garcia out for the year. Their GM has also talked openly that they need a left-handed bat. We both liked the Jose Abreu signing in the offseason. He's been terrible for them.
Yeah.
So starting pitching, which I think there's a good amount of, as I said, I expect them to get a starting pitcher and potentially some more of the offense that is, I think, going to be a little bit more in demand at the deadline. I don't think there's as much of it, but there might be a bat to be had by the Astros. But they had, I think, probably for them, a disappointing first half. They're starting to play better recently, and they are in a second wildcard spot.
It'll be interesting to see the dynamic between, and I don't know what the situation is in the state of Texas, but the Texas and Houston battling it out in the same division, going after probably similar players. Like if you're looking at at starting pitching, both teams are going to go after it. Texas needs a win. The Rangers need a win in that division. They need to leapfrog the Astros. The Astros have been that team in the state for quite some time now. So it'll be interesting to see if there's kind of a mini bidding war between those two teams as well. And Texas for sure is going to have to overpay.
All right, moving over to the National League buyers, the Braves are in first place. I think you could make an argument they are the best and most complete team in baseball. They could use to add in the bullpen and possibly a backup infielder. They've also got Fried and Wright returning from injury, so they could pull the old we're acquiring at the deadline through.
Yeah, but they're actually
activating guys off the injured list.
It's a valid thing because they have a very good team. They don't need to do a lot. They have a
very good team.
They have a damn good young team. That team has been playing together for a while. They're a scary team for sure in the National League. So I don't think they really need to do too much. More about filling some gaps and trying to improve the depth of the team. I think is going to be their focus.
The Brewers are a game back in their division and a half a game back in the wild card. They've needed offense for years, and they still need offense.
Yeah. I think you're looking at them and the Dodgers in a similar light where they're looking at offense. And
Dodgers specifically middle infielder, though. They've gotten no production out of second base and shortstop this year.
Their shortstop get hurt. Their one of their shortstops get hurt. Either way, the Dodgers are in a weird position too with the whole, and this is the elephant in the room is when we get to him, Shohei Ohtani, is he going to be moved? Is this a realistic situation? Everybody in the world and their mother is saying that the Dodgers are lining themselves up for him. Is this an opportunity to go get him early?
That would be such a Dodgers move.
It would be such a Dodgers move.
They had a disappointing first half, yet they're still tied for first place with Arizona, who's, I think by percentage points, I don't know how it's currently worked out, but I think by percentage points, the Dodgers are in first place, but Arizona had a surprisingly good first half. They need some starting pitching depth and an outfielder.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're one of those teams too. Like it's hard to see some of these teams that are surprise teams that are maybe a year or two ahead.
Probably a better argument for in between.
Yeah, because I don't know if they're going to really give up too much talent that's young, controlled, and in their depth in their farm system to get someone to make a run now. Because do they really believe that they can do anything this year? Probably not. They're just happy where they are and like happy that everything is progressing in the way
probably
that
like Baltimore last year.
Exactly. So I have a hard time seeing them going out and selling anybody who's worth a damn.
San Fran is 2.5 back, and they're in the third wild card. They need a frontline starter and possibly an infielder. I expect them to be active at the deadline because they're, unlike the Diamondbacks, they are not a team that's just like happy to be there. They had a really good season. Was that 2 years ago? 2021? They won like 100 games, or maybe that was, I don't remember when that was, but they obviously were active for Judge and Correa in the offseason. That didn't work out, but I expect them to be buyers.
And I think, again, they're a team that's playing a little bit over their skis right now. And that division, I think, is probably just going to get even harder as the season goes on. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were in the selling category too.
Do you want to do the sellers next or the tweeners?
Let's do the sellers, because I think there's some interesting names in here that we should talk about.
All right.
That might have some relevance with the tweeners.
The sellers are brought to you by Game Time, the easiest way to grab tickets to sporting events, concerts, comedy shows, theater, and whatever else you want to go to. I love the app because it's so easy to use. They have cool features like they show you the trending tickets and what sections the best deals are in, and it calls out cheap options and flash sales and so much more so you can make informed purchases. They also have event cancellation protection so you can buy with confidence. You get those images of your seat before you go so you know what the view is going to be. That's also important. Like for Yankee Stadium, if you're buying a ticket, I don't need to see an image of the seat. I've pretty much walked around that stadium. I know what it is. But if I'm buying to like a road stadium and I've never been, I'm going to want to see those images. So that's cool. The buying process is also super fast. Just 2 taps and you're done. And the tickets go directly to your phone, so you don't have to dig through your email. You can snag tickets without stress using Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code BRONX for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Once again, download the app, create an account, and use our code BRONX for $20 off your first purchase. Thanks, Game Time. Sellers, the White Sox. Huge disappointment for the White Sox this year. They're in 4th place, 8 games back, 12.5 out of the wild card. Pretty much that whole team can be on the trade block because they also have a lot of expiring contracts here. So Giolito is the number one guy, though.
Giolito is the number one guy. His deal is up after this year.
Yeah, he's a free agent.
He's a free agent, right? So he's a full rental. Obviously had a good year last year. Is pitching.
He's having a good year. 3.41 ERA, 1.28 ERA plus. He earns $10.4 million this year. So you're adding about five, call it $4.5 million if you acquire him this month.
Yeah, lefty. So he's an interesting guy. Righty. Sorry. Yeah, he's the opposite of what I just said. He's an interesting guy that obviously has had a track record of he's up and down. He's had an up and down career for sure, but as of late, he's definitely figured it out. So he's going somewhere.
He's another one of those guys that I include in the category with Montgomery and Eduardo Rodriguez, where again, you're not acquiring him where you're like, all right, this is our ace now going forward, but he can pitch like a number 1 and he's probably a number 2. So that's what you're acquiring. And I think because there's an abundance of pitching, I think you're not going to be giving up boatloads of prospects for these guys that are rentals. There's also Lance Lynn, who's not having a good year, but he could be an innings eater. Clevenger, who's got a mutual option for 2024.
He's hurt right now?
He's currently on the IL. I feel like he's always injured, but
I want nothing to do with that guy.
Yeah, I want nothing to do with injured guys.
Most teams shouldn't want much to do with that guy.
Another guy on the injured list right now is Joe Kelly, but he's been pitching well when he's healthy, but he's got an elbow injury, so who knows there. Tim Anderson, why has he been so bad this year?
I don't know. He's an interesting player too, because he's also not the type of guy that goes through long struggles in the way that he approaches his at bats. He's a really good hitter. So I don't know if this is a lingering injury or something or what's going on, but if they're going to get rid of him, he's a really interesting player. If he's healthy, he's a really interesting player that could definitely help a lot of teams.
There's been a lot of rumors that the Dodgers are going to go after him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it fits what you're talking about with middle infield. So he's got the ability to do that. I could see him doing well. He's a really interesting player because if he's healthy, he's definitely a difference maker.
Yep. Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Detroit, 3rd place, 5.5 back, 10 out of the wild card. They've got a lot of guys on the trade block. So Javier Baez is interesting. He's got an opt out after this year. I don't think he's opting out of 4 years and $98 million, considering he's been awful yet again this season. Eduardo Rodriguez, on the other hand, has a player opt out after this year, and he is expected to opt out of his remaining 3 years and $49 million because Erod has a 1.61 ERA plus a 2.64 ERA. He's been pitching really well. I don't think he's a number one, but he's another pitcher.
He's not a number one.
I know, but he's been pitching really well. So he's a guy that will probably be moved. He's going to opt out after this year and sign a decent contract in the offseason. But especially for a team like Baltimore, that is like the ideal person. That is an ideal player to trade for. And I think he came from the Baltimore system originally, if I remember correctly. I think he was part of the Andrew Miller trade from Baltimore to Boston way back when.
Okay.
But Erod is a perfect fit for that team. Because you're not going to be trading a ton of prospects for him. Detroit already knows he's opting out after this season. Baltimore knows he's opting out after the season. He's pitching to a mid-2 ERA. That is exactly the type of pitcher Baltimore needs.
So Detroit's interesting in the sense that they are, it's a bad division, but they're 5.5 games out, third place, probably better than people expected them to be at this point as well. But they do have some veteran guys that they can trade. So if I'm Detroit and I'm looking at my current situation in the landscape of the league here, and understanding that the Central is very much up for the taking in the next couple years here, I'm getting rid of everybody that I possibly can,
prospects,
and doubling down on my young players. And if Baez is part of that, and I don't think he's going to be, because I think the contract is,
he's got a 64 OPS.
Can't move that contract. That's the
64
problem.
OPS plus this year after a 92 last year. He's been awful for the Tigers.
Yeah. What's his strikeout rate? 47%.
1,000. I don't know.
Yeah. So I don't think anybody wants that player. And so he's, you kind of have to live with him.
You're stuck there,
which I don't think is the worst thing in the world. Like he could turn it around, but the Erod, which you definitely trade him 100%. And anybody else who has any expiring contract, like literally clean house, get rid of as many people as you can and get as many lotto picks in the minor leagues as you can. If I'm Detroit, that's what I'm doing. And you have a track record of a guy who's run a team with young players and done well.
And the Royals are way back of everything. They're obviously out of it. They already traded Chapman, but Barlow, Matt Duffy, Nicky Lopez could all be on the block. I was looking up and down their roster. They really don't have much on there. Barlow is probably the most intriguing. He's got a 1.5 years remaining in arbitration.
They've missed on a lot of players. I don't even know what the hell that team's doing. So yeah, just trade everybody.
Nicky Lopez is a versatile infielder, but he's not very good.
He was supposed to be their shortstop coming up and just wasn't. So he's played around. They don't have a ton of talent. So yeah, no. They kind of need to continue to hit the reset button.
Oakland is in last place. They could have on the block Paul Blackburn, Seth Brown, Trevor May, Brent Rooker, a bunch of players on the trade block for
bunch of guys in Oakland over there. Who's their first baseman? Nato, is that his name? And he's a guy who's got a high on base percentage, walks a lot. So there could be something there with somebody, but he's that team. If you want stolen bases, go to Oakland and get that guy. But that's about it.
The Rockies are not definitely, because I don't know. The Rockies could buy at the deadline because they make no sense, and they consistently make moves that are just baffling. But Profar and Blackman, you would think with expiring contracts, would be on the block, as well as Brad Hand and CJ Cron and Randall Grichuk as well. So they do have some pieces to move. And then the Nationals are in last place. Heimer Candelario and Lane Thomas, Corey Dickerson, all as pieces to move and some rental options there as well. But as you can see, we just went through those definite sellers. White Sox, Tigers have pieces to move. Royals, Oakland, Athletics, Colorado, they're sellers, but like none of these pieces are that intriguing. The Nationals, I think, have some good pieces to sell, but that's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sellers. Everyone else, you can make an argument, is going to be buyers in the league because we haven't gone in the in-betweeners, but some of them might sell, some of them might do nothing, but there's not a whole lot of buyers, and that's exactly what baseball wanted to do with this expanded playoffs.
Yeah, you mean sellers. There's not a ton of sellers that are out there that are defined. And the problem is the way that the league is situated, those sellers, like you said, don't have a ton of talent to go out and shop their guys. So you look at this in between, and then you're looking at GM saying like, okay, do we actually have a shot? Yes, the standings say what they do, but do we actually have a shot to make a move, or am I planning for next year or 2 years from now, 3 years from now? Because really, that's what a lot of these teams need to be thinking about. Because if they don't think 2 to 3 years ahead, they're going to miss the boat and be in the same middling bullshit situation that they're in now. And that takes a specific type of person to allow that to happen. I think for a franchise, and a GM that has the forward thinking of setting the team up for the future. And it's not an easy thing to do.
So the teams I think that fall into that category you just mentioned specifically are the Marlins and the Reds, both in playoff positions. The Marlins are in the first wild card spot, and Cincinnati is actually in first place. But neither of those teams were expected to be contenders this year, both looking towards the future. So I think you can make the argument for both of those. For that reason, they should not be buyers at the deadline.
Yeah, you also need to look at like their path to the playoffs too, and what the path is after that. Anybody in the NL East is in for tough sledding for sure. Miami's interesting, man. They have a lot of young talent too. So, it depends on, I don't know that team as well. So it just, I guess, depends on how ready they are. And if they're able to, if they're in a situation, because they've been in this over, I feel like they've even with that COVID year and then beyond, like they've played better than a lot of people expected.
COVID year, they played well, but otherwise,
it's still there. They have talent down there too. So they're in a situation where they're not ready to go. They're not doing anything in that division. They're not getting out of the NL. So
that's what I'm saying. So, but they do have pieces to move. I don't know if you like the pieces or not. Floro Gurriel and Garrett Cooper. They have so much young pitching. So I think they could make moves at the deadline. I just don't think they will.
Yeah.
Same with the Reds.
Yeah, no, I think if anything, they're most likely going to sell and continue that build to where they are. But
and we already talked about,
this is why Derek Jeter left. There's frustration there. They're not committing to one thing.
Yeah, we already talked about Cleveland. Boston is in last place, but would you say Boston is completely out of it?
No.
So they could be buyers. They could be sellers. If they're sellers, James Paxton, Justin Turner, Adam Duvall, Kenley Jansen could all be moved. But if they're buyers, they need to go out and get some starting pitching. And there is starting pitching to go be had.
I will say this, the track record of Boston, understanding what the situation is in the East and the AL, they're not going to, I don't see them making a run. Like, can you really rely on James Paxton to keep doing what he's doing as of recently? Because something like he could be walking up the stairs and hurt his hip in the All-Star break, that like very real situation there. So if I'm Boston, and Boston has done this in the past where they take a year off and they sell, and then they all of a sudden spurt back up because they add some, free agents that do better than anybody expects, would not be surprised if they sold all of those players at the same time.
I wouldn't be surprised either. But if in the next 2 weeks they go 10-4, they're not.
I don't think that. I think they're not. They're not as reactionary. The franchise is not as reactionary to get duped by a 10-4 hot streak after, just before a deadline. I'll, as much as I don't like to say it, I don't think they're that dense to think that they can actually do something. And I guarantee you that Cora has a pulse of like what they actually could do, and probably would recommend, hey, let's figure this out, punt, get better on the talent side. So that we can come back. Because if you look at the landscape of the free agent market, and then you look at some of those players that could be available as rentals, they're pretty decent names.
Yeah.
Justin Turner is a name. I don't know what his situation is with getting traded. I would assume no problem there. But Duvall, interesting. Kenley Jansen, like track record. And then Paxton, with the way he's pitching, like someone could be really interested in that.
You're right. But also, a 10-4 next 2 weeks could put them firmly in the third wildcard spot.
Firmly.
The Seattle Mariners will be looking for a bat, but they could also be trading away like Teoscar Hernandez, who is a rental. I kind of confused at what their position is going to be at the deadline. They're 4 back of the wild card, 6 back in the division. The Angels are a game under 500, and they've lost 9 of their last 10. Shohei Ohtani, will he be moved? What is his actual value at the deadline? Because he is a free agent. Trout injury, like that whole situation is a mess.
Trout's out for what, a month, another month at least, probably longer, given track record and like shit, man. I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna do. They're such a mess. They're such a mess because they didn't capitalize on what they have. They're completely screwed. They really are. They're screwed. Shohei Ohtani obviously can't do the things that they want him to do by himself on a baseball team. Like that, it doesn't work that way. Even if you have all planet talent, you know, all time talent, it doesn't work that way. So if I'm them, I'm looking to see what I can get from him. I mean, you have to.
Yeah.
Right?
You have to, but like their owner has said they're not trading Ohtani.
Okay.
Because the owner is probably like, well, let me cash in on these tickets. Well, although coworkers of Tyler, as you know, Tyler Chin, Scott, went to an Angels game a couple weeks ago. Ohtani pitched, and he's like, it wasn't even a sell. It was a Friday night. Ohtani was pitching. He hit a home run that night. He was like, yeah, the stadium was like 65% full.
Yeah, because it's LA. Don't forget, it's not. They don't have like
You'd figure Friday night Ohtani on the mound, that's a sellout.
I guess. When the Dodgers in town, I don't know how they do that, but
I don't know who they were playing.
So yeah, he's not even putting butts in seats. Then it's
That's
just
right.
it's a fickle fan base. I think when for the Angels, they're like the Clippers. You know, you could put all the superstars on the Clippers. Like, does that get all that exciting? I don't know. I don't have a pulse to that situation. But so you gotta look at it, because you have to look yourself in the mirror and say, are you actually going to be keeping this player? And if so,
even if
why?
if you want to sign him, trade him away, get some prospects, and then sign him in the offseason.
Yeah.
What's stopping them from doing that? Yeah.
I mean, nothing's stopping them besides the market, but yeah.
All right. We'll fire through the rest of these teams quickly. The Phillies, half a game back in the wild card. They could use a corner, outfielder, starter, first base. I don't think they really have anything on the trade block. They obviously were in the World Series last year, so they probably think they can make another run at it. The Mets are
interesting
because they do have a lot of pieces. David Robertson, Tommy Pham could be moved. Max Scherzer has been rumored that wants to pitch for a contender, could be moved. But also Steve Cohen, is he going to sell? I don't know.
Yeah, so if he sells, then like, what's the plan? Because it's, you know, they're not grooming players. That's not the plan.
The plan is to go spend a $500 million in free agency next year on Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, so they've really dug themselves a massive hole. I don't know if it's one that can come back. They can come back from, but they might believe that. They might believe that they can come back. At least compete for a wild card. They have the talent to do it. It's a matter of them putting it together. So I don't know what the hell they're going to do. I wouldn't be surprised if Cohen went out and made more moves. But again, like, they don't have. You can't just buy someone like Steve Cohen in free agency. You can't do that at the trade deadline. So it's not as easy for him to navigate. This is not his time to shine. So it'll be interesting to see how he operates and how that front office operates.
We already talked about Cincinnati, the Cubs, who we just saw at Yankee Stadium. If they are buyers, need some bullpen and some first base help, but they do have a lot of guys.
The Cubs are selling, right?
Marcus
the Cubs
Stroman,
are selling.
Cody Bellinger are the two names obviously leading there, both having good seasons. So I expect them to sell as well.
Yeah, I for sure think they're going to sell.
The Pirates, who had a surprising start to the season, are 8.5 back and 8 back of a wild card. They could use some pitching, but they're a hard team to figure out.
Also, a situation like you
probably going to do nothing. They're probably going to do nothing.
Why? You need to. I would, if you have pieces, you get rid of the pieces you have. You're not competing this year. You're not good enough. You have some young talent. Build around that talent. Get younger. Double down on that. That's. I mean, I don't think it's a. I think it's a no-brainer if you're over there running that team.
The Padres are 6 back of a wild card, 8.5 back in the division. They need offense, specifically at DH.
Which is crazy when you think about the names on that team.
Not expected to be sellers. Juan Soto's an interesting name, though. So anyway. And
they want offense. They want, just repeat that again. And like then Manny Machado, Juan Soto, Tatis Jr. Like, it's crazy that they're looking for offense.
Well, like Matt Carpenter and Nelson Cruz have been awful at DH for them.
I mean, Cruz has been on the way out for 2 years now. Matt Carpenter, hit lightning in a bottle.
They DFA'd Cruz. Okay.
Hit lightning in a bottle. with the Yankees. Like if
Yep.
everybody couldn't see that, and then he got hurt, which was not it was not a good injury either. It was an injury that like really messes you up, especially an older guy that just refound his swing again. Like it's a tough one to come back from.
And then the Cardinals, who have talent, have a lot of talent to trade. Montgomery, Flaherty, Tyler O'Neill, who should be coming back from injury. A lot of names to potentially trade. They're way back, but they have talent.
They have a ton of talent. That team is crazy to me still. Like to me, the Padres and the Cardinals, even though they're pretty far back where they are, I mean, the Cardinals are significantly further back in the wild card, but I really don't think that either team is going to trade as far as like a dump, you know, like they may trade a piece to get a piece that will help them, but I don't see them, fire sailing. I just don't. St. Louis just doesn't do that really often. And so it wouldn't surprise me if San Diego, if there was someone in the front office that said, San Diego, like we need to shed, then they could have a fire sale. That's happened. Wouldn't surprise me there, but I think they have enough talent and they're good enough where they can make a move.
All right. So that's every single team, buyers, sellers, in-betweeners. We are going to be recording tomorrow morning on Wednesday, our GM plans episode, probably release that Thursday morning. Thursday is also an off day before the Yankees start the second half of the season on Friday. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll talk to you then.